Welcome back, grade 11s. Now let's continue with our applications question. Outline the reasons why businesses need funding. So businesses require funding to cover startup costs, including, so we need to cancel this G, it's a mistake, including premises, machinery, and raw materials. So as a business, we need money. More especially, we are starting a new business, we need startup money, the money that we are going to use to purchase land and building, the money that we're going to use to buy raw material, the money that we are going to use, obviously, to buy the machinery that are going to be used in a business. Businesses require funding to run the business and have enough money to pay employees or suppliers of raw materials. We need money as a business to pay the people that we have hired, whom we call our employees, pay salaries, pay wages, even pay our suppliers, those people who are supplying us with raw materials as a business. And then pay for cost of input such as wages, telephone, and other expenses. We need money as a business to pay for even other expenses, including our telephone, including our water and electricity. So that's another reason as a business we need money. Then another question says, describe factors that influence the choice of funding. We have the nature of finance. This depends on the owner if they want to use own or borrowed capital as well as short or long-term loan. So obviously the nature of funding would depend on an individual entrepreneur, if whether they want to use their own capital or they would want to go to a bank and borrow money. And these are going to be determined actually by if they need short-term loan or they are going to need a long-term loan. So that's the nature of finance. Another factor that influences the choice of funding is amount of capital needed. The larger the amount of capital that is needed, the owners will have to look at borrowed capital. So obviously, if we are going to need a lot of money that an entrepreneur does not have, the entrepreneur could consider going to the bank and borrow that large amount of money that is needed. If they can't provide with their own capital, then they will be forced to go to the bank and borrow money. Then we have cost of financing as a factor that influences choice of funding. The cost of the funding is normally measured in interest, in the interest that must be paid for the funding. So obviously the cost of financing, we are not going to only calculate the money that is going to be given us by the bank. We are going to add an interest on top of that amount because yes, the bank can give us a certain amount, but we need to bear in mind that there is also interest that has to be paid with that particular money that we have borrowed actually. Then we have availability as a factor that influences the choice of funding. If more own capital is not available, the business might be forced to use borrowed or other way around. So obviously, if we don't have enough own capital as the owner, if you don't have enough capital as the owner, you will be forced to look into other ways of getting money, like going to the bank and borrow money if you don't have your own capital. Then we have period of financing. If needed for a long period, might rather use own capital because borrowed capital will be too expensive over a long period. So obviously, if you need capital or money for a long period of time, you can look into using your own capital as an owner, because obviously if you are going to the bank to borrow money for a long period of time, they are going to charge you more in terms of paying back the money with their interest because of the long term that they will be giving you their money. So before we wrap up, let us just go for a quick ad break and we will be back.